Look at this duck. It has bare red skin around the eyes that looks like it belongs on a turkey. It sits in trees. It does not quack. It hisses. And in 2010, the United States federal government made it illegal for an American family to own one. Not restricted, not permitted, illegal to possess. The rule that did it runs several pages, and almost all of it is ordinary regulatory language. But there is one sentence buried in the middle that I want you to hear before this video ends, because once you understand what that single sentence permitted, you will understand exactly how much thought went into any of this. Here is the part that makes no sense at all. The duck was banned under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. This duck does not migrate. It has never migrated. It is a tropical bird that perches in trees and stays exactly where it is, year-round, for its entire life. So how does a bird that does not migrate become a protected migratory species, and then get outlawed in every backyard in the country? The answer comes down to 3 counties. Welcome to Forgotten Roots. The vault opens today. Start on the Pacific coast of what is now Peru, more than 1,000 years before the Spanish arrived. Along the river valleys, farmers are keeping a large black and white bird. It roosts in trees rather than on the ground. It nests in hollows. It feeds itself on insects, snails, water plants, and whatever spills from the household. Duck bones are small and rarely survive in the archaeological record, so the physical evidence is thin. But the artists left what the Middens could not. The bird appears on Moche pottery. It appears on Chimu pottery. Researchers have identified specimens from Panama, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and northern Argentina, in context suggesting it was being traded between cultures long before any Europeans saw it. Now here is what makes that remarkable, and it is a fact most people get wrong. South America domesticated almost nothing. The llama, the alpaca, the guinea pig, and this duck. That is close to the entire list. An entire continent, thousands of years, 4 animals that made the crossing from wild to kept, and one of them lived in trees. It earned that spot. Every other farmyard duck on Earth descends from the wild mallard. This one does not. It comes from a completely separate lineage, a perching, hole-nesting tropical species, which is why it behaves nothing like the duck you are picturing. Then, Europeans got hold of it, and they got the name wrong. Twice. The Spanish carried the bird home. From Europe, it spread into Africa, Asia, and Australia. Somewhere on that journey, the English-speaking world started calling it the Muscovy duck, which means from Moscow. Then, in 1758, Carl Linnaeus gave it the formal scientific name it still carries, Cairina moschata. Translated roughly, that means the musky animal from Cairo. Moscow, Cairo. The bird is from Peru. 400 years of European record-keeping, and nobody got the address right. Which is funny, until the exact same thing happens again in 2010, except that time nobody is laughing, because that time it cost people their livestock. We will get there. First, you need to understand why anyone bothered carrying this bird across 3 oceans, because it was not because it looked nice on a pond. Muscovies forage, turn them out, and they convert slugs, snails, mosquitoes, weeds, tender grass, and fallen berries directly into meat, which means your feed bill drops toward whatever your land already grows for free. The meat itself is unusually lean, noticeably lower in fat than the Pekin duck that dominates commercial production. The hens lay modestly, 50 to 100 eggs in a year, which sounds like a weakness right up until you see what they do with them. A Muscovy hen goes broody, reliably. She sets her own clutch. She defends it. She will sit on eggs from other waterfowl if you slip them under her. 2 broods a year is normal, and 3 is not unusual. In practice, that means the bird replaces your incubator, your heat lamp, and your electricity bill with herself. But the trait that actually put this duck into peer-reviewed scientific literature was none of that. It was the flies. In 1993, two researchers at the University of Guelph in Ontario, Barry Glowczewski and Gordon Surgener, published field results in the Journal of Economic Entomology. They put Muscovy ducks into working swine and dairy facilities and counted houseflies. I want you to guess the number before I say it. 1 duck, 1 calf pen. How far down do the flies go? 96.8%. The maggot population dropped 98.7%. In an enclosed calf room, flies on the animals themselves fell by 84 to 93%, depending on the trial. A separate finding put the ducks at roughly 30 times faster than commercial fly traps at clearing an enclosed space. And the researchers were honest about the limit, which is why I trust the rest of it. In open areas where flies could freely move in and out, they found no significant reduction. The duck is not magic. It clears a bounded space, which happens to be a fair description of a barn. So add it up. A bird that feeds itself, hatches itself, strips the flies out of your livestock housing, and finishes as lean meat on the table. Worked out by people with no metal tools and no writing system, roughly 1,000 years before anyone published a study confirming they were right. Now hold that picture in your head, because we are about to watch the United States government outlaw it. The birds arrived in America the way ornamental waterfowl usually do. People liked how they looked and released them onto ponds, in parks, in retirement communities, on golf courses, in subtropical Florida, with year-round warmth and an endless supply of bread from people who enjoy feeding ducks. The birds did what any well-adapted animal does. They stayed, they bred. Feral flocks spread across Florida and into other warm states, and they caused real problems. They compete with native waterfowl for food and nesting sites. They foul pool decks and walkways. They damage property. They can move disease between wild and domestic birds. Municipalities and homeowners associations spent years asking anybody, to deal with it. That part of the story is true. It is not exaggerated and it is not invented. Feral Muscovy flocks in American suburbs are a genuine nuisance, and there was a legitimate case for managing them. What came next was not management. Remember the 3 counties, because here is the detail that almost nobody outside the agency knew at the time. Muscovy ducks are not entirely foreign to the United States. There is a small natural wild population along the lower Rio Grande, in the far south of Texas, Hidalgo, Star, Zapata, 3 counties. That is the complete Native American range of this species. But under the law, a species is a species. The feral bird sitting on a retention pond outside Tampa is biologically identical to the wild bird on the Rio Grande. And because the species occurs naturally on United States soil, the whole species falls under the protection of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. Follow that chain one more time, slowly. A tropical perching duck that does not migrate anywhere becomes, by pure operation of law, a federally protected migratory bird. Not because it migrates, because a few hundred of them live in 3 Texas counties. On March 1st, 2010, the Fish and Wildlife Service published its final rule. It took effect 30 days later, on March 31st. Here is the language as written. You may not acquire or possess live Muscovy ducks, their carcasses or parts, or their eggs, except to raise them to be sold as food. If you already owned birds, you could keep them, but you could not breed them, could not sell them, and could not transfer them to anyone for any purpose except to be used as food. Read that again. Raising them to sell to a stranger was legal. Raising them to feed your own family was not. And alongside that rule, came a control order. Anywhere in the contiguous United States outside those 3 Texas counties, landowners and federal, state, tribal, and local wildlife agencies, plus their tenants, employees, and agents, could remove or destroy Muscovy ducks, their nests or their eggs, at any time when found, with no federal permit required. Now, that sentence I promised you at the start of this video, it sits inside the control order, and it reads, "You may not retain them for personal use or consumption. You could kill the bird. You could not eat it." A federal document, written by a federal agency using federal authority, established that the correct fate for this animal was to be destroyed and thrown away rather than fed to a human being. Think about who that landed on, not the feral flocks. A feral duck cannot read the Federal Register. It landed on hatcheries that had shipped Muscovy ducklings for decades, on exhibition breeders, on 4-H kids with a pen behind the house, on small farms running Muscovies through the barn for fly control, doing exactly what the Guelph study recommended, on families raising a few birds for their own table, who woke up one morning to find that feeding their own children was now the single thing they specifically could not do. None of them had a lobbyist. Most had no idea a rulemaking had happened at all. Even the Humane Society, filing formal comments, pointed out that the rule as drafted appeared to outlaw ducks already kept as pets, and that forcing private owners to kill their birds or stand in violation of federal law would be unreasonable and unnecessarily cruel to both the ducks and the owners. So the obvious question is, why? What was the reasoning? What was the agency protecting? When they finally explained themselves, the answer was 4 words long. They did not know. That is the whole thing. When the hatcheries and hobbyists finally reached the Fish and Wildlife Service, what came back was not a defense. It was the admission that the service had been unaware of the commercial meat production and the hobby breeding of Muscovy ducks in the United States. They wrote a rule about a nuisance bird on Florida ponds without knowing the same bird was livestock in every state in the country. Nobody sat in a room and decided to outlaw a peasant's duck. What actually happened is more ordinary and harder to sit with. A small population in 3 Texas counties triggered a classification. The classification triggered a treaty. The treaty triggered a rule. And at no point did anyone stop to ask who else was standing downstream. Then something genuinely unusual happened. The rule broke. Duck owners, hatcheries, and breeders buried the agency in letters. They organized. They wrote to Dr. George Allen at the Division of Migratory Bird Management, and critically, they made a specific documented case instead of an emotional one. On October 1st, 2010, 7 months after the rule took effect, the Fish and Wildlife Service published proposed revisions. It decided not to restrict possession and not to require permits for propagation or sale. What it kept was the one piece that had real justification behind it. You still may not release captive reared Muscovy ducks into the wild. That is where things stand today. No federal permit is needed to possess them. Florida's own Wildlife Commission states plainly that no permit is required to keep Muscovy ducks as personal pets. The release ban holds. The control order for feral birds holds. So if you want these birds, here is the practical picture. Check your state and county rules first, because they vary, and some places treat waterfowl separately. Never release them, ever, and that is not bureaucratic caution. That is the entire reason this mess started. If you want them working, put them where the Guelph numbers actually apply, in enclosed housing rather than open pasture. And let the hens handle reproduction. They are better at it than you are. The bird has not changed. It forages the way it foraged in the Moche valleys. It eats the same flies it ate in that Ontario calf pen. It raises its own ducklings the way it has for 1,000 years. What changed for 7 months in 2010 was a definition on a list. And that rule only got reversed because a few thousand duck keepers happened to notice, happened to organize, and happened to reach the one official who would actually read their mail. Which leaves the question I cannot answer for you. How many other animals are sitting one classification away from the same thing right now, kept by people who will never see it coming? If this vault opens something for you, subscribe to Forgotten Roots and hit the bell. Every share keeps this knowledge alive. The next vault opens soon.